Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's show, Ice Day. Yes, you heard me right, Ice Day. So we were supposed to get some light snow and or freezing drizzle on the overnight, and when we woke up this morning, it was called 2 hours late for school because of freezing rain, and the roads were like ice rinks in some parts of the metropolitan area. The driveway, when I went down to put the garbage and the recycling out this morning, I almost slipped on my back. It was a sheer coat of ice. And so I got up, I walked on the treadmill, watched some Nigel Saunders in the Bonsai Zone. Loved working on that forest there, working on those black spruces and the larch. Looking awesome, Nigel. And after I was done with my walk and my viewing of the show, I got ready for work like normal because 2 hours late means that we're supposed to get in as close to the time as possible, at least a half an hour before students get there. So no sooner did I get to work, and they called off school for the whole day. Yeah, Ice Day. Not a snow day, not a frigid day, but ice on the roads. So I did some stuff and putzed for about an hour, and then I got to come back home to work on, well, bonsai, of course. You might be asking what these are all about because they've been sitting in front of me as I gab, and you're probably wondering what. I have some trays from some older pots. They're a little bit dirty. This is a real pretty one. Got some nice kind of a burgundy red on it, and it's got little hints of green on there, and apparently some tape on there. Yeah, and so we've got that one to clean off, and then we've got this blue one. So these are just some trays that I don't even know if I have the bonsai pots anymore to go with them because I think they broke because I might have left them out in the Minnesota winter and they were not Minnesota hardy and they cracked and perished. So I have these trays. I also have some kind of old rundown moss that I collected from the cabin this past fall. Oh, and incidentally, if you want to see that trip up to the cabin, it was one of my favorite trips of the year with Toby, of course. Went up to the cabin and he let me use his drone. Yeah, you should go check out that episode right over there in the corner. I'll put it for you. Check out the episode, Bonsai Hunting Up at the Cabin. It was a lot of fun. And I gathered on that trip a little bit of sphagnum moss. Yeah, in our larch swamps up there by the cabin. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do some sifting of the sphagnum moss, and we're going to sift some of the spores out of these kind of drying and not very good moss here. Yeah, we'll break that up, and we're going to make 2 new beds and try to grow some moss. Now, I haven't been really successful in growing moss, but I thought, hey, on this ice day, I've got all the tools, I've got all the stuff for it. Let's just go ahead and make some moss, hopefully. That'll be ready maybe for some spring repots and so on. So we're going to clean these 2 pots up, and then we're going to sift. We're going to lay a little thin layer of some bonsai soil, my smalls, and then we're going to just sprinkle the stuff on here, and we're going to keep it warm and wet every single day. We're going to be watering this thing or misting it for sure, and so it just hopefully does some nice growing between now and springtime. Let's clean the trays. There we go, all spruced up. This one's pretty. I love the, too bad you don't see that part because usually there's a pot on there. And we're gonna be covering that up with some soil and then hopefully some moss gonna be growing on there so we won't even see how pretty this is. But it's a real nice burgundy color. Got a nice little patina growing on that side there, or forming I should say. I don't know that patina grows, it forms from being outside in the elements. All right, this one I did notice in the bottom there was a couple of like hairline, there's a hairline crack in there, so I have to be careful that I just don't destroy that one. But that again was outside. I don't know if this one was, and so that's what caused that breakage on that pot, and then maybe even I could lose that if I'm not careful. But we're going to keep it inside the plant room as we try to grow some moss. And this one just has a little bit more of that caked on calcium deposit from our hard water. Let's see if I could do a little scraping. Yeah, that helps a little bit. Just my blunt tweezer tip. I don't want to cause any chips in the ceramic. But just enough of that rough surface where it takes off the calcium deposit. I've got the trays all cleaned up, ready to go. We're going to put some bonsai soil on the bottom of those, and then we're going to go ahead and put on some sphagnum moss, and then we're going to sprinkle on some of the moss. So now it's time to sift the moss. So generally, with my experience with moss, when I've been able to shred it on up and put it with some sphagnum moss, there are plenty of spores that are still around in that, and it's going to go ahead and form some new growth. So we get that through the bottom screen. We'll keep all of these pieces too, these fine pieces, and there's this nice dust down here. Let's get all of these pieces right here, and we're going to go to town. Now, I listen to a lot of videos, watch a lot of videos, and recently, Nigel was out on a bike ride and just going in his neighborhood looking for moss. I've never done a good job of that yet, looking in my neighborhood. Every once in a while, I'll steal some moss from my parents' house. So I've gotten some moss that way. But I haven't found my good moss spot yet. And so wherever you can find that moss that's going to be growing, the key, of course, that I've discovered and I've listened and learned about is if you're going to collect some moss like underneath my deck that's in the shade all day long and then put it in a tree that's in the sun all day long, that kind of moss is kind of more of a shade moss, not a sun moss, and you're not going to have much success growing that out. Unless you're watering it constantly, and then it's just got so much water, you're probably just soaking it so much, probably is not going to work. So make sure you go find those pieces of moss in the sidewalks and the cracks on the road that are getting full sun all day, and you'll be able to hopefully have some success with your moss. And of course, once you find some moss and you have some moss on your trees, and then you do what I'm doing by taking it off, drying it out, and then spreading out all the spores and making some new potential moss, that's what's going to create some more moss, right? So hopefully your moss is growing and it's getting nice and thick. And then you're going to dry it out or just put it on a new tree, and then when you trim it and cut it, you're going to hopefully save all that, dry it up, or just sprinkle that onto some new trees, and you'll be in good shape to slowly get yourself some moss. I hope. Now, I can't speak with a ton of experience because, as I said, to date in my bonsai career, I have not had a ton of luck with moss. But to be honest and to be fair, I haven't put a lot of emphasis on moss yet. I usually go with the sphagnum moss, and then that slowly but surely will grow some other kinds of moss on it from being so wet and moist. So there is our moss shavings. We've got some thicker chunks in here that didn't break down. They're just a little too moist still. Just when you think it's dry and really crusty, there's still a little bit of moisture in here. So we've got all this moss powder that's going to be mixed with the sphagnum moss and put into these trays right here. Okay, so I'm going to put this into another bin, and then we will go ahead and work with the sphagnum moss. Now with the sphagnum moss, I'm going to go ahead and use the medium size in my sifter. I'm not going to worry about getting it too ultra fine, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to start mixing up some of the sphagnum moss. I'm not too overly concerned about getting it super tiny, because again, as this gets wet and we water it often, we're just going to get some new growth hopefully. Normally I'd be sifting outside and the air kind of blows most of the particles around, but this is going to kind of stay lingering in my room here. So I thought it'd be a good idea for me to get a mask on so I'm not breathing in the super fines of the sphagnum moss. So you can see right here my nice little bed of moss. We're going to keep going a little bit more. I don't think we're quite done retrieving what I want to retrieve for the moss. Here we go. So I think I'm going to leave these two separate. I could mix them all together, but I want to kind of leave the moss to sprinkle on the sphagnum moss. It is finer particles. It'll find its way in the cracks there. So I think I'm going to leave that for the final thing to put on top. And so we're going to get our two trays out here, and we're going to load them up with a little bit of soil, and then put some sphagnum moss in there. Of the bonsai soil that I have, the pieces, parts, the ingredients, I have the most of pumice in smalls. And so I'm just going to use 100% pumice for this experiment. We don't have any drainage holes in these trays, so they are going to stay pretty moist. And where this moss comes from, this sphagnum moss, it's wet 24/7, through and through. So it's a bog moss that is always wet. So if I keep this always wet with the rocks as kind of a bottom substrate, the pumice rocks here on top of the tray, and then the sphagnum moss, and then the moss, I hope we'll be okay. So there we have two trays full of some of the pumice, and then we have our sphagnum moss. So this is good. Sifted up sphagnum moss. Let's see how much we can have on here. Of course, as soon as I add water, it's going to not be quite as puffy. My goal is to cover up all the pumice so you don't see the pumice. The one bad part about pumice, if you don't use pumice, and we're thinking about pumice, not that it's horrible, but if you have pumice and only pumice, which most people wouldn't use for their bonsai trees unless it's recovery purposes. I use 100% pumice in my harvested trees for that first year or two. And then we go into my mix of lava rock, akadama, and pumice. But the downfall a little bit with pumice, if it bothers you, is it's white, right? So it's not very natural looking. It's super white, just like perlite is. And if you have all pumice, well, it just looks all white. And then, when you have a lot of water on pumice, and it retains its water, as the sun is starting to dry it out and everything, you all of a sudden start to get some algae blooms, mini algae blooms on your white rock. So your rock turns a color green, if you will. Gives it a bit of a green look. Okay, so you may or may not want that as a part of your, well, the ambiance of your pot and trees, your look. Let's give this a little bit of a water in here to kind of settle out some of the sphagnum moss. Again, it's going to compact it down a little bit on itself. And if I just drench this thing, I'm going to have water seeping out the edge of this, so I don't want to go too crazy at first here. And again, this is a room where the dehumidifier is on, and if I put it real close to lights and the dehumidifier is on, it's going to suck up this moisture pretty fast anyway. And it's lava, it's all pumice. It's not any dirt, so it's not going to be just this big chunk of muddy dirt. It's going to be in between the rocks. And there we go. That's just a good start right there. And the reason why I feel that it's probably important for me to put this layer of moisture on here is that'll give something for the moss spores to cling to right off the bat when I put it on here. Okay, so patting this down. So far so good. Whenever you water moss on trees, you think it's really wet through and through, and it never typically is, because it just might run to the bottom, it might just run off the side of your pot, and you're going to get, if I just disturb this surface right here, there'll be a lot of dry moss left. So even though I'm sprinkling a fair amount of water on here, there's still plenty of dry spots on this moss. And if you can tell, there's still some green moss. This has been in my garage in cool temperatures. It might have been frozen during that cold spell. And we have this green living tissue here. This green moss is alive. So very, very crazy. Okay, there we have the sphagnum moss. I shredded up just the right amount. Got kind of lucky there, wouldn't you say? No trick editing involved. And so now we have our moss from the cabin. So here we go. We're going to just sprinkle this on top. Oh yeah, there's a lot. Maybe I could have done another tray. But let's just see if this works first. And we got some of the clumps on here again, as I mentioned before. And we got some real powdery stuff. So the powdery stuff just kind of falls through my fingers, and then the clumps slowly but surely. And we are making a moss bed. A bed of moss instead of a bed of roses. And I don't know, yeah, maybe I could have done three of these moss beds instead of just two. This is a fair amount of moss. I'm impressed. I have bought moss from a package once, and you were supposed to add warm water to it, and then you're never supposed to really let it get dry. And then I'd go off to work, and I don't know if it just wasn't, I don't know if I just didn't do it right, but I never had luck with that package of moss. All right, and there again, we have 2 trays full of some sphagnum moss and some moss from the cabin. There we go. And now let's give this another gentle watering. See if we can settle in that moss. Boy, it smells like moss. I'm getting that smell from whatever moss that is, the sphagnum moss or the cabin moss, which is more the green rooftop kind of moss. I'm gonna have to get my mister down here and mist these. All right. I think I'm still breathing in some moss spores. I don't want to put these by the window. I want to get these. Here we go. 2 trays of moss ready to go back on the shelves. We'll keep them away from the window. It might be a little bit cool there. As you see, I'm draining some water out there. That's going to be helpful. There we go. Just get some of that water out if I'm feeling it's just a little too soupy. There we go. I gotta go find a place on the shelf. Okay. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of room over here, is there? Let's see what we can do to make a little moss grow. While I'm here, here's a really good update. Here's one of the Premnas that I sprayed with all the other Premnas for that mildewy substance, and this has none of it on there whatsoever. So that's really awesome. I'm going to put this up here. That's a small pot, and I have another one that's in a small pot, and it's, look at how dark green this is under the full bright lights too. Very green. All of that mildewy stuff is gone on that one as well. So those 2 young trees are in really good shape. Let's go ahead and show you another one since I'm moving stuff around. Look at the bright green leaves on this one. Now, I had mentioned in a very, very recent show that I was going to put some more of the Grow Safe on here, but I think right now I might be able to hold off with most of these trees because it all appears to be clean now of the mildewy substance. All right, this one I'm going to have to just put aside for a moment and see what I can do. Oh, here's another Here's another in just a little small little nursery pot, all clean of the mildew, super nice and healthy. We can put that one over here as well, I think. They just get a little bit trickier to water over here. And I spill a little bit more on the floor, but it is a cement floor. Okay, so those three are there. That made some more room. That's nice. I have some of my variegated Benjaminas over by the window, so I'll make some room over there. That can join his friends over by that window, so that opens up a spot right there. So let's get this one sitting real close here. Right there. Let me see, right there. I'm going to move this little melon seed ficus. We just did a melon seed ficus chop just yesterday, and here's my other chopped ficus from a while ago, and it's got a new branch coming down low here, a really nice nabari right here that's kind of flaring out, so we're going to go put that over by the other light, by the other one. That'll be nice. I have my two Thanksgiving cactuses over here. I'm going to put that on top of there. That's going to sit real nice there, and I can water both of them. And there's our first spot. We can probably move this one here, and we can probably put this here. Yeah, there we go. And then because these aren't drainages, I can put this one right here. Let's see if it's covering. We have light exposure. Almost through. There we go. No shade. All right. We didn't have to move too much around. That's super nice. So we have the moss sitting right here, not under the direct light, but it's certainly getting a lot of light from my big grow light here. We shifted that around. Now I still have room down below, so because I like all this light down here, I'm going to go ahead and put these back down here because they're so green and loving life. Why would I change those? So I think we'll put those back down there. Yeah. And let them grow. And since we did an update on all those other Premnas, here's my favorite Premna, and look at how much greener that is. Super green, and it looks like all of the mildew is mostly gone from this. Oh, just a couple of stragglers maybe on there. So, you know, I still may treat one or two of these trees just to be preventative. But that is super excited. People are asking about that. So another update upon updates. We have our moss here ready to grow. I'll give you an update on that, of course, as we get some growth. My next update for the day is my tiger bark ficus. Now, since I put this into the new pot, gave it the slant, wired it up, cut it all down, I started to really get some good growth in the last couple of weeks. And so if you can see in here, we've got a nice new bud coming way down here. Right here as well. These two are kind of colliding right now. A lot of new growth on this branch right here. There's some, and all the tips have new growth. There's even a bit of growth back down here in this lower branches. I was hoping for a couple up here, nothing yet. But then, as I looked at it here and I set it up for this update, I'm noticing some slight wire moving into the tree here. So we might have to take this wire off for now and rewire it a different time because I don't want scars on this tree. So we're going to go ahead and take this off and see what it looks like. And yeah, there's one big scar right there. Now it's in the back of the tree if you're looking at the front, but that is not what we want to have as scars. So a nice reminder for everybody to check your trees. Even in a plant room in the middle of winter time, we have a scar here that we need to take care of. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off here because it's by a root. And then I'll see if I can get the rest of this off of here without creating too much. Now the big thing is going to be, is this branch going to hold where it's at right now? See if I can do that without breaking that bud. There we go. I have a feeling some of this branch is going to bounce right back to its original shape. But then we'll just go ahead and do some more magic later on with some wire. I don't use a ton of wire, but on this one it really, I felt needed a little bit. But again, if you just go ahead and do some clip and grow and be patient, you can go a long way with that. So the wire is off. Let's show you that scar in the back. It's right here. There's some scar right in there. And actually on the front of that one as well, there's a little scar right there. There's a little scar right here. Right there as well. So a couple scars on this side, one scar on that side. This branch has been spared, but it already has popped up a little bit here. It's getting a little bit taller. But we can guy wire this. That would be a nice candidate for a guy wire we wouldn't have to worry about. But it has movement on here. We'll just see if this bud does anything. Maybe we take this bud for that bud down the road and we just have this nice branch growing out this way. Who knows? Because again, this is all going to be cut back eventually. It's doing some good back budding now. We're just going to leave it alone and let it do some more back budding. And then we'll see if we can get some good clip and grow for directional pruning and see where it goes. We might put some more guy wires on these sometime and get them to make some moves. So there's update of the tiger bark ficus, doing pretty well in the plant room. The last update for today is how my cold frame out in the garage has been doing since I moved the thermometer, the Govee thermometer, back towards the back a little bit, and I put that little patch on the front. I don't recall if I've updated that recently, and we had a cold snap. Now it's been warm again, but right now if I take a picture of this, yeah, we have the garage low, which is I still think is the high, is at 39 degrees, and the garage high, which I think is in the low spot, because I don't know if I ever switched them back out, is 37. So 39.9 and 37, only 3 degrees different, which is really a good temperature, right? Hovering in those upper 30s, that's nice. So the Govees are doing their job. The patchwork I did is doing its job, and so that cold frame, that environment has been really, really steady ever since. So an update there. Oh, and by the way, the cabin cold frame out there has been at a comfy 44 degrees for most of today in the last 24 to 48 hours. So good to see that as well. That's going to wrap it up. We've got some moss hopefully growing in the plant room. I'm really excited about that. I haven't had much success, and I hope this is going to be the turning point and we get that to grow. Now, if you have had a lot of success with moss, gosh, shoot me the comments down below. Like, what are you doing? Where are you getting it? What are some of the things that you've done to have success with moss, other than just going and finding it in really great places? But that could help too, unless I can't come to your place. All right. Hey, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai and that moss. And we'll catch you on the next one.